No rank, no name, just shadows and fight. A silent sniper stepping into the light. Mocked and unseen, she stands alone, till a ECAL commander salutes her throne. If you're ready to hear a story of courage, strength, and breaking barriers, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit that bell icon so you never miss a story that inspires and empowers. Now, let's dive into the remarkable journey of a female sniper who earned the salute of a SEAL commander against all odds. In the quiet town of Cedar Springs, nestled in the rolling hills of the Pacific Northwest, life moved at a steady, predictable pace. It was the kind of place where everyone knew everyone, where the same faces passed you on Main Street every day, and where traditions ran deep. The local high school football games were the highlight of the week, and the small diner on the corner had served the same apple pie for decades. Amidst this small-town charm lived Sarah Whitman, a woman whose story most people didn't know, and many wouldn't believe if they did. Sarah was in her early 30s, with sharp, steady eyes that seemed to hold the weight of 1,000 untold stories. She had grown up in Cedar Springs, raised by her father after her mother passed away, when she was just a girl. From a young age, Sarah was different. Not in a way that made her stand out with loudness or flamboyance, but in the quiet way she carried herself. She was calm under pressure, focused, and strong in a way that was easy to overlook. Sarah had always dreamed of serving her country. After high school, she joined the military, determined to prove herself in a world that often didn't make room for women in combat roles, especially not ones like hers. She wasn't just any soldier. She wanted to be a sniper, a position that demanded patience, precision, and nerves of steel. But the military was a tough place for a woman chasing that dream. At every turn, she faced doubt. Snipers? That's not for women, some of her male comrades would say with sneering smiles. Others simply ignored her, pretending she didn't exist or that her presence was a joke. Despite the whispers, the smirks, and the outright dismissals, Sarah pressed on. Every early morning spent in grueling training, every late night practicing her aim, she built her skills quietly, letting her rifle do the talking. The military base where she was stationed was a world apart from Cedar Springs, a place buzzing with discipline, orders, and a constant undercurrent of tension. Here, her age and gender didn't fit the mold, and that made her an outsider. At the shooting range, she was mocked for her size. Too small to handle a sniper rifle, they'd say. In briefings, her ideas were brushed aside. The commanding officers barely noticed her, let alone acknowledged her potential. But Sarah wasn't here for approval. She was here to prove that determination could beat prejudice. One day, a new assignment came down. The SEAL team was preparing for a crucial mission overseas, a mission that could change the course of a conflict. They needed a sniper, and the word on base was that the spot was already filled by one of their seasoned men. But when a sudden illness sidelined the lead sniper, the team was left scrambling. The SEAL commander, Lieutenant Jake Mason, was a hard man to impress. Tough, experienced, and sharp-eyed, he had little patience for anything that didn't meet his high standards. Sarah saw her chance. Without fanfare, she requested to step in. Her voice was steady, her request quiet but firm. The room fell silent. Some chuckled. You? A female sniper on a SEAL mission? That's a joke, a corporal muttered. But Mason didn't laugh. He looked at Sarah with a mixture of surprise and skepticism. Why should I trust you with this? Mason asked, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Sarah met his gaze. Because I'm ready. Because I've earned it. And because I won't let you down. The decision was grudging, but Mason gave the nod. She was in. The days leading up to the mission were some of the hardest Sarah had ever faced. Training alongside the SEALs was brutal. The men tested her every step, pushing her to her limits. Some openly mocked her presence, while others quietly respected her skill but kept their distance. Through it all, Sarah held her ground. She didn't just survive. She excelled. Yet beneath the surface, there was an unspoken struggle. Every successful shot she took, every moment she saved a teammate's life, was met with disbelief, not praise. The silence was deafening. One evening, after a long day of drills, Sarah sat alone by the base's edge, staring out at darkening horizon. The weight of being unseen, unheard, and underestimated pressed heavily on her. But deep inside, a fire burned, a fire that refused to be extinguished. That fire was about to ignite in a way no one could have predicted. The night air was cool, and still as Sarah sat on the edge of the base, the distant lights flickering like stars fallen to earth. Her hands, steady and sure by day, trembled slightly now. Not from fear, but from the weight of 1,000 silent battles fought in a world that refused to see her. Back in Cedar Springs, her family and old friends had their doubts. Why put yourself through this? Her father had asked one night over a phone call. They don't want you there, Sarah. You're fighting a war on two fronts, the enemy out there and the ones inside the walls. But Sarah had no answers. Then only a steady voice. Because I have to. Because if I don't, then who will? Her resolve had been forged in smaller battles long before she ever held a rifle. Growing up as a girl with big dreams in a town that didn't always believe. In them, she learned early how to carry silence as armor. She was quiet, but not weak. She listened, observed, and waited for her moment. Now, that moment was coming faster than she expected. The mission briefing came just before dawn. The SEAL team gathered in the dimly lit operations room. Maps and satellite images spread across tables, the air thick with tension. Lieutenant Mason stood at the front, his usual stoic demeanor softening ever so slightly as he looked toward Sarah. This mission is high stakes, Mason said, voice low but commanding. Our target is heavily guarded, and success depends on precise coordination. Sarah will be our sniper. A murmur rippled through the room. Some eyes flashed with surprise, others with doubt. Sarah met each glance with quiet confidence. The plan was simple in theory, but perilous in practice. The team would insert near the target zone under cover of darkness. Sarah's role was critical: to provide overwatch, take out key threats, and ensure the team's safe advance. Every second counted. As the hours ticked closer to departure, Sarah felt a strange calm settle over her. She was ready. Not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. The months of training, the sneers, the silence, it had all prepared her for this. The night mission began under a moonless sky. The team moved like shadows through dense foliage, every step measured, every breath controlled. Sarah found her perch, a high vantage point overlooking the target compound. The weight of her rifle was familiar, comforting. Minutes stretched into hours as she scanned the area, muscles taut and senses sharpened. Suddenly, movement. 2 guards patrolled near the perimeter, their steps slow but deliberate. Sarah took a deep breath, lined up the shot, and squeezed the trigger. The silence after the shot was absolute. The guards went down without a sound. The team moved forward, deeper into enemy territory, shielded by Sarah's watchful eyes. The mission was far from over. As dawn approached, chaos erupted. An alarm blared, and enemy forces swarmed the area. The team was pinned down, and the situation turned deadly fast. Sarah's training kicked in. She adjusted positions, picked off threats with unerring precision, and covered the team's retreat. Her calm under fire saved lives that day, though no one said it aloud. Back at base, the mission debrief was cold and clinical. The success was noted, but Sarah's role was barely mentioned. The men who had doubted her before remained distant, the respect she had earned hanging in the air like a fragile secret. But something had shifted. Lieutenant Mason approached her late that evening. His usual hard expression softened, eyes meeting hers with something unspoken. "You did good out there," he said simply. No fanfare, no applause, just a nod of respect. For Sarah, it was more than she had hoped for. A silent salute, unseen by many, but a promise that her place was no longer in the shadows. Yet the road ahead remained uncertain. The small victories were just the beginning, and the battle for respect, for equality, and for recognition was far from over. The days after the mission were a strange mix of triumph and tension for Sarah. She had proven her worth under fire, yet the cold shoulders and whispered doubts lingered like shadows in every hallway of the base. Some of the men avoided her gaze. Others forced a tight-lipped silence when she entered the room. The small victories she'd won in the field hadn't yet broken through the walls of old assumptions. Sarah found herself alone more often than not, her only companions the steady weight of her rifle and the quiet hum of the base at night. She would spend hours at the shooting range, honing her skills, perfecting every detail. It wasn't just about being good enough. It was about shattering the doubts that clung to her like a second skin. One evening, as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Sarah received a letter from home. Her father's familiar handwriting brought a momentary warmth. He wrote of the quiet pride he felt, the small-town gossip finally turning to talk of the woman who wouldn't back down. "They don't know what they're missing," he wrote. "You're stronger than anyone there." The letter was a lifeline, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, she was not alone. But back on base, the undercurrent of resistance grew. Rumors swirled. Some said Sarah's place was not on the front lines. Others whispered that she was lucky to be where she was. The team's camaraderie felt fractured, and the very air seemed thick with unspoken challenges. One afternoon, during a tactical exercise, a senior officer made a pointed comment loud enough for all to hear. "Maybe we should keep the sniper. Roll to those with the right disposition," he said with a sneer, casting a glance in Sarah's direction. The room fell into an uncomfortable silence. Sarah's heart pounded, but she didn't respond. She let her steady hands and unwavering focus speak instead. Lieutenant Mason, standing nearby, caught the slight insult. For the first time, he stepped forward. "Enough," Mason said, his voice firm. "Sarah earned her place here. End of discussion." The room shifted, tension breaking just enough to let a flicker of respect shine through. Over the next weeks, Mason and Sarah developed a quiet understanding. He was tough, a man shaped by years in combat, but beneath his hardened exterior was a growing respect for her strength and skill. They shared long talks late into the night, not about rank or reputation, but about duty, sacrifice, and the cost of silence. Sarah's story began to spread beyond the base. Veterans and locals back in Cedar Springs heard whispers of the woman, sniper who stood her ground, who faced down doubt and danger with equal measure. It wasn't just about the rifle or the mission. It was about breaking the barriers that had held her, and so many others back. Yet with each small step forward came a reminder of the work left undone. Sarah still felt the sting of every snide comment, every dismissive glance. The battle for respect wasn't just on the field. It was in every interaction, every whispered word. One evening, as the base prepared for another deployment, Sarah received a visit that would change everything. A group of young women from a military outreach program had come to see her, inspired by her story. They listened intently as Sarah spoke about perseverance, about the cost of fighting for a place at the table. Their wide eyes and eager faces filled Sarah with a quiet hope. Maybe her journey wasn't just her own. Maybe it was the start of something bigger. As the sun set over Cedar Springs and the military base buzzed with the quiet energy of preparation. Sarah stood tall, no longer just a soldier in the shadows, but a beacon for those who dared to dream. Life on the base had settled into a rhythm, but Sarah knew that beneath the surface, everything was changing. The respect she'd quietly earned had begun to ripple outwards, but with that came new challenges, ones that tested not just her skills, but her spirit. The SEAL team was preparing for another mission, this one more dangerous and unpredictable than the last. Intelligence suggested that the enemy had adapted, and the stakes were higher than ever. Sarah was called into the briefing room alongside the team leaders. The air was thick with tension as plans were laid out. Lieutenant Mason looked directly at her. "You'll be the lead sniper again," he said without hesitation. "Your eyes and steady hand saved us last time. We need that again." For a moment, Sarah felt a quiet swell of pride, but she pushed it down. There was work to be done. Training intensified. The days grew longer, the drills harder. Some of the men who had once doubted her now sought her advice, cautiously at first, and with genuine respect. Sarah didn't take their change of heart lightly. She knew trust was earned, not given. Yet not everyone was ready to accept the new reality. One afternoon, after a grueling training session, a group of soldiers cornered Sarah near the mess hall. Their tone was mocking, their words sharp. "Think you're some kind of hero now?" One sneered. "Don't forget, you're still the odd one out." Sarah met their eyes, her voice steady but firm. "I'm here because I earned it, and I'll keep earning it every single day." The confrontation ended without violence, but the message was clear. The battle for respect wasn't over. Amid the tension, Sarah found solace in the quiet moments. The early mornings, watching the sun rise over the base, the letters from her father, and the rare smiles shared with Lieutenant Mason. Their partnership had grown into a bond forged by shared hardship and mutual understanding. One night, after a particularly tough day, Mason found Sarah on the base's perimeter, staring into the distance. "You carry a lot," he said quietly. Sarah nodded. "More than most know." He didn't press. Instead, he offered something rare from him, a small, genuine smile. The mission approached, and with it, a mixture of fear and determination. Sarah prepared her gear meticulously, checking every piece with practiced care. This was more than a job. It was a test of everything she had become. The night of deployment arrived. Under the cover of darkness, the team moved out, shadows among shadows. Sarah found her position, heart steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. The enemy was more prepared this time, and the firefight was intense. Sarah's eyes scanned the horizon, fingers steady on the trigger. One by one, targets fell. Her actions saved the team more than once, allowing them to press forward against overwhelming odds. But during the chaos, Sarah was wounded. A bullet grazed her shoulder, pain flaring sharp but brief. She refused to slow, refusing to let injury define her. Back at base, the medics patched her up. The team gathered, their faces a mix of relief and awe. Mason approached her, his salute slow but full of meaning. "You didn't just earn my respect," he said. "You earned something more." For the first time, Sarah felt seen, not just as a soldier, but as a leader, a warrior, and a woman who had broken through walls built to keep her out. Yet the journey was far from over. The wounds she carried weren't just physical, and the fight for recognition still waited on the horizon. But that night, beneath the quiet stars, Sarah allowed herself a moment to breathe, to feel the weight of what she had overcome, to know that silent, unseen though she might have been, her impact was impossible to ignore. The weeks after the mission were a mixture of recovery, reflection, and quiet transformation. The wound in Sarah's shoulder, though minor in the grand scale of battle injuries, became a symbol, one of sacrifice, resilience, and the price she paid to be seen as more than just the girl sniper. Back at the base, the hum of daily life resumed, but nothing felt quite the same. Sarah's presence, once tolerated or ignored, was now undeniable. The whispers had shifted. The looks changed. Some soldiers offered nods of respect. Others simply averted their eyes, unsure how to approach the woman who had proven herself beyond doubt. Still, Sarah didn't seek praise. She wanted the work, the mission, the challenge, the chance to serve. She wanted the chance to show that her place in this world wasn't an accident or a fluke, but the result of relentless determination. One morning, Lieutenant Mason stopped by the small room where Sarah had been recovering. He looked tired but earnest, his usual guarded demeanor softened. "You've done more than most here," he said. "But I know you want more than just grudging acceptance." Sarah nodded. "It's not just about me. It's about the ones who come after." Mason's eyes darkened with thought. "I'm thinking of recommending you for a leadership role. It won't be easy. There are plenty who'll fight it. But it's time." The weight of those words settled over Sarah, like the dawn light filtering through the window. Leadership, recognition, a chance to change the system from within. Over. The next weeks, Sarah prepared for the new role. She trained harder, studied tactics and strategy, and met with officers who had previously dismissed her. Some met her with skepticism, others with curiosity. The battle for respect had moved from the field to the halls of Command. Outside the base, the town of Cedar Springs followed Sarah's story with quiet pride. Local newspapers featured her picture, and the Guiner's regulars debated the meaning of her achievements. For some, she was a beacon of hope, a sign that the old ways could change. For others, a reminder that the world was shifting in ways they hadn't yet come to terms with. Sarah visited her father often during this time, each conversation a balm against the storm of doubts and challenges. He had never been a man of many words, but his pride was clear in the steady grip of his hand and the quiet smile that lit his face. One afternoon, as they sat on the porch of his small farmhouse, Sarah spoke of her dreams, not just for herself, but for all the women and men who felt unseen. "They say it's hard," she said softly, "but I think it's harder to stay silent." Her father nodded. "You're changing things, Sarah, even if it's slow, even if it's quiet. You're making a way." Back on base, Sarah faced her toughest challenge yet. The leadership role meant managing not just strategy, but people, their fears, their biases, their hopes. Some resisted her authority openly, while others worked behind the scenes to undermine her. The pressure was immense. Every decision she made was scrutinized, every mistake magnified. The silence she once wore like armor now felt heavier, filled with unspoken judgment. One evening, after a heated meeting, Sarah found herself alone in the command center, the glow of computer screens casting long shadows. She sat back, letting out a long breath, feeling the weight of expectation settle like a stone in her chest. Her phone buzzed. It was a message from Mason. "Need to talk, now." When he arrived, his expression was serious, eyes sharp. "We've got a problem," he said. "Rumors are spreading. Some of the senior officers want you out. They say you're too disruptive." Sarah felt a familiar sting. The fight was far from over. Mason continued, "But I've got your back. We're going to need a plan." Together, they crafted a strategy, one that would expose the prejudice and push back against the old guard. It was risky, and it meant confronting powerful people who controlled the base's future. Sarah felt the familiar surge of determination. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about justice, fairness, and breaking the cycle. The days that followed were tense. Meetings became battlegrounds of wills. Sarah spoke clearly and calmly, backed by evidence and the undeniable truth of her service. Slowly, allies emerged. Soldiers who had once doubted her now stood beside her, sharing their own stories of struggle. And one afternoon, during a tense hearing, a senior officer accused Sarah of insubordination. The room was silent. Every eye fixed on her. Sarah stood tall. "I'm here because I earned it," she said. "Not because I'm a woman, but because I'm a soldier. Judge me by my actions, not by old fears." Her words echoed, breaking the silence. The hearing ended with no action against her. A small but significant victory. Outside the base, the story made headlines. Sarah became a symbol, not just of courage in combat, but of standing up to injustice. But with the spotlight came new challenges. Sarah's private life was suddenly public, and the pressure to be perfect was exhausting. One night, alone in her quarters, Sarah allowed herself to feel the weight of it all. The sacrifices, the loneliness, the moments when the silence felt too heavy. Yet, beneath it all, the fire still burned, quiet, steady, unyielding, because Sarah knew that true. Strength wasn't about being seen by everyone. It was about never giving up, even when you felt invisible. And the journey was far from over. The days after the hearing passed in a blur of activity. Sarah found herself thrust into the center of attention, a position she had longed for, but never truly prepared to handle. The base, once a place where she had moved quietly among shadows, now felt like a stage where every move was watched and judged. Her new leadership role came with its own challenges, managing teams, making tough decisions, and navigating the unspoken politics that ruled the base. Sarah quickly learned that strength on the battlefield was only part of the equation. Diplomacy, patience, and strategy were just as vital. She spent long hours studying military protocols, leadership principles, and conflict resolution. She sought advice from officers she respected, including Lieutenant Mason, whose quiet support became a cornerstone in her daily life. Yet, not everyone welcomed the change. Some senior officers, steeped in tradition and resistant to progress, continued to push back. They questioned her every decision, spread rumors about her abilities, and tried to isolate her. One day, after a tense meeting with a particularly harsh commander, Sarah returned to her quarters, the weight of frustration heavy on her shoulders. She was tempted to retreat, to let the silence swallow her once more. But then a message from her father popped up on her phone. "Keep going, Sarah. The strongest trees grow through the toughest storms." That simple encouragement reignited her determination. Sarah began to reach out beyond the base. She connected with advocacy groups supporting women in the military, sharing her story and listening to others. Their voices gave her strength, and their struggles mirrored her own. Back on base, she implemented new training programs designed to foster teamwork and respect. She held open forums where soldiers could speak honestly about their experiences and challenges. Slowly, walls began to crumble. Her efforts didn't go unnoticed. A visiting general commended her for her leadership and courage, praising the positive changes she had inspired. For the first time, Sarah felt the tangible shift she had fought for, a step toward true equality. Amid the professional challenges, Sarah's personal life blossomed quietly. She and Lieutenant Mason grew closer, their bond deepening into a partnership built on mutual respect and shared experiences. They found moments of joy amid the chaos, a shared meal, a quiet walk beneath the stars, a reassuring hand on a tough day. But the battle was never far away. A new mission loomed on the horizon, one that would test Sarah's leadership, skill, and resolve like never before. Intelligence pointed to a high-risk operation deep in enemy territory, requiring precise coordination and flawless execution. As the team prepared, Sarah reviewed every detail, knowing that lives depended on her decisions, She felt the familiar mix of fear and determination, the weight of responsibility heavy but clear. The night of deployment arrived. The team moved with practiced stealth, every member trusting Sarah's guidance. Her sniper rifle was ready, her eyes sharp. The mission unfolded with intense pressure, unexpected resistance, shifting conditions, and split-second decisions. Sarah's calm under fire saved the team multiple times. Her leadership held steady, even when the chaos threatened to overwhelm. But amid the operation, Sarah made a critical call, one that risked her own safety to protect her team. In the heat of the moment, she exposed herself to enemy fire, drawing attention away from her squad. A bullet struck her leg, pain sharp and immediate. She gritted her teeth, refusing to fall, signaling for the team to move forward. Back at base, the medics worked quickly, stabilizing her injury. The team gathered, their faces a mix of relief and admiration. Mason saluted her, his eyes shining with unspoken gratitude. "You led us through hell," he said softly. "You earned every bit of respect and more." Sarah smiled, pain fading into pride. She had fought not just for survival, but for recognition, for justice, and for the right to be seen as an equal. As she healed, the base began to change in subtle but lasting ways. Policies shifted, opportunities expanded, and the culture slowly opened to new voices and ideas. Sarah knew the road ahead was still long, but she felt ready. The silence that once threatened to drown her had become a source of strength, because she had learned that true courage wasn't just about being seen. It was about standing tall, even when no one was watching. The months following Sarah's recovery were marked by a quiet transformation, both within herself and the base she had fought so hard to influence. The whispers of doubt began to fade, replaced by murmurs of respect, and the glances that once cut like knives softened into nods of acknowledgement. She had carved a place, not just for herself, but for anyone who dared to break through the barriers of tradition and prejudice. Sarah's leadership brought new life to the team. She fostered an environment where voices once silenced found space to be heard. Her training programs emphasized not only physical skills, but the importance of trust, empathy, and resilience. Slowly, the culture shifted from one of suspicion to one of shared purpose. Lieutenant Mason remained a steady presence, a confidant who understood the burdens she bore. Their relationship deepened, forged through shared hardships and mutual respect. They were partners, not just in the field, but in the quiet moments of vulnerability that few saw. Yet Sarah's journey was far from over. Even as the base embraced change, forces beyond their control threatened to disrupt the fragile progress. One afternoon, a letter arrived, an anonymous tip revealing a covert operation gone wrong, buried by senior officers to protect reputations. The mission had resulted in unnecessary casualties, and the truth had been suppressed. Sarah felt a familiar fire ignite within her. This was not just about her story anymore. It was about exposing the truth, seeking justice for those silenced by bureaucracy and fear. She confided in Mason, who agreed to help. Together, they gathered evidence, spoke with witnesses, and prepared to confront the system that had allowed such injustice to thrive. The fight was daunting. Powerful people tried to silence them, using threats and manipulation. But Sarah's resolve was unbreakable. In a tense hearing, Sarah presented the evidence. Her voice was steady, her words clear and compelling. The room was silent as the truth unfolded, a reckoning long overdue. The fallout was swift. Senior officers were held accountable, policies reformed, and a culture of transparency took root. Sarah's courage had sparked a movement, one that reached far beyond the base, inspiring others to speak out and demand change. In the wake of this victory, Sarah was honored with a formal commendation. The ceremony was humble but profound. As she stood before the assembled officers and soldiers, Lieutenant Mason by her side, a SEAL commander stepped forward. With deliberate respect, he saluted her. It was a moment that transcended rank and tradition, a silent acknowledgement of strength, sacrifice, and undeniable worth. For Sarah, it was the culmination of a journey marked by silence, struggle, and unwavering courage. She had faced doubt and disdain, pain and loneliness, and had emerged not just victorious, but transformed. As the ceremony ended, Sarah looked out at the faces around her, men and women who had fought beside her, who had learned from her, who now saw her not as an anomaly, but as a leader. Her story was no longer one of silence and shadows, but of light and hope. Because sometimes the greatest battles are fought not with guns, but with courage to stand and be seen. The ceremony hall was quiet, except for the soft murmur of footsteps and hushed voices. The air was thick with a mix of pride, relief, and something almost unspoken, respect earned through battle and sacrifice. Sarah stood tall, the weight of her journey resting not just on her shoulders, but in the steady beat of her heart. The SEAL commander's salute had been the moment that changed everything, a simple gesture, yet charged with meaning. It was a silent acknowledgement that transcended the barriers she had spent years trying to break. For years, Sarah had been no rank, no name in the eyes of many, an unseen figure, whispered about, underestimated, and dismissed. But now, she was recognized for what she truly was, a leader, a warrior, and a symbol of courage that couldn't be ignored. After the ceremony, the room filled with quiet conversations and smiles. Soldiers who had once doubted her now sought her out, eager to learn, to thank her, or simply to shake her hand. It was a moment of redemption, not just for Sarah, but for everyone who had fought their own battles in silence. Back at her quarters later that evening, Sarah sat quietly, the hum of the bass settling around her. Her thoughts drifted to the long road she had traveled, the insults and isolation, the pain and sacrifice, the moments when she had doubted herself. Yet, through it all, she had held fast to one truth, that courage isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silent. Sometimes it's unseen. But it is always there. Her phone buzzed with a message from her father. Simple and heartfelt. "You did it, Sarah. You made us all proud." She smiled, feeling a warmth that no medal or salute could match. The next day, Sarah visited the small town of Cedar Springs. Walking through familiar streets, she saw faces light up with pride and recognition. The local diner, once a place of whispered doubts, now displayed a photo of her in uniform, a quiet testament to a hometown hero. At the edge of town, Sarah met with a group of young women who had followed her journey. Their eyes were bright, with hope and determination. She spoke to them about strength, sacrifice, and the power of never giving up. "You don't have to be loud to be heard," she told them. "You just have to be brave enough to stand." As she watched them walk away, Sarah knew her story was no longer just her own. It was a legacy, a beacon for those who would come after. Back at the base, Sarah prepared for the next chapter. Her role had changed, her influence grown, but she remained the same, a soldier who had faced the silence and turned it into strength. The years ahead would bring new challenges, new battles. But Sarah was ready, because she had learned that the greatest victories often come not from the roar of applause, but from the quiet certainty of standing tall, when no one else will doubt her name was no longer unknown. Her rank was no longer questioned. She had earned her place, her respect, and her future. And in the end, that was the true victory.